dominant A minor. Today's lesson is on the Mona Lisa. This is my Gypsy Jazz Bootcamp All of Me Etude number 3. And hopefully you've already checked out my number 1 and number 2 etudes for All of Me, which was, number 1 was the lower neighbor tone. Okay, so it's crucial that you memorize these triad shapes first of all before you apply the embellishments, just so you have a target of what you're doing, you know. And it's so much easier instead of just trying to memorize licks and stuff. Just a lot of the licks are just built right off of these shapes and embellishments. Number 2 was the upper neighbor tone. Okay, you can start to add those articulations. This one, number 3, as you just heard, is the Mona Lisa pattern. Okay. We could take it all the way through the fretboard, but obviously I was just demonstrating the top 4 strings. But I really recommend that you go way beyond these basic etudes. So I'm not going to review the shapes. I'm just going to talk briefly here. This is kind of a quicker video. Just the patterns again that I'm thinking. So for the C major, it's a shape, okay, for the C major, which comes right out of that big bar chord shape, you know, the E shape here on the 8th fret. And for the embellishment, we start on the C, the root. We go half step below the lower neighbor, and then the upper neighbor, D, the upper scale tone neighbor, and then back to the root. So it's just a 4-note pattern. Very pretty. On the 5th degree, which is the 2nd string, the G, it's the same pattern as the root. That's pretty easy to remember. So it follows G, then the lower neighbor, F sharp, A, the 6th degree, then back to the G, the 5th. And then on the 3rd, this is where you want to really be careful. In this case, we're going half step below the E. So first E, then D sharp, or unless you want to call it E flat, I'm fine with that. And then a half step above, which is F. Okay, so the 3rd gets treated with a half step above and below both, or below and above respectively. Okay, so that's on the C chord. And then I just hit the root. So the lick for this etude was this. Okay, that's for the C chord. I highly recommend, you know, that you I'm just demonstrating a couple different chord shapes. This C down here, then stay on one string. You know, experiment with your different C shapes, and just basically, again, really be careful of the 3rd degree, the half step lower neighbor and the half step above. Otherwise, it's just root and 5th, which I'll have a kind of a special video later where we talk a lot about root 5th licks. Okay, so let's move on. For the E7, this is where it's kind of the secondary dominant. It's really the dominant chord of A, which is the 6th degree of C, and it's supposed to go to A minor, but in this case it'll go to A7, as you hopefully know the progression. So we're going to treat it a little bit darker. That's and that's really a fun and easy lick, actually. You might have seen my Sweet Georgia Brown video, where my Sweet Georgia Brown etude, where I target those with the half step above and below neighbor tones. So in this case, we're going this shape, E, which is, you know, comes from the A shape, if you're thinking of it like that, the cage system. We have this, and then, so it's kind of dark. We'll do more of that stuff, those little embellishment figures with the slurs in upcoming videos. But again, I think it's really important that you just familiarize yourself with the triad shapes that you're targeting, and then, you know, just have one embellishment in mind as to not confuse yourself. The next shape is A. And that's the 5 chord of D minor, which is the 2 chord in the key of C. So it's called a secondary dominant. It's the dominant of the 2. And I'm treating it the same way because it wants to sound a little bit darker. So here's the shape. And again, I'm thinking of the chord tones, but when you're playing really at fast tempos, you don't think about it as much. At least I don't. I just know the sound that I'm going after. So the root, okay, that's below and above, just like before, the Mona Lisa. I'm gonna hit this low A. You can kind of get the feel of that. Later on, you're gonna want to do those. Beautiful slurs, but for now we'll keep it simple, which is just this. And that's the lick. Of course, we want to apply this and fly around all over the fretboard when you're jamming on Dark Eyes or Caravan or something, that flavor. I have an old video, by the way, on Caravan, if you look it up on YouTube, where I kind of demonstrate that on the dominant chord there, that half step above and below. Then it goes to D minor, and I'm going to stop here as far as this goes. D minor, here's the shape, just these 4 strings, which is coming from the A minor shape, of course. So I'm going to break that down. It's this shape. We have the 5th on top. We're going a half step below, half step above, whole step above, and then resolve. And this one's really nice. It's the same pattern all the way through. So again, we're just combining what you did on the Etude number 1 and Etude number 2 for all of me. Hopefully, again, you have those in front of you. Okay, and then take it to the 3rd into the root. And I didn't do that on this particular Etude, but then you can, of course, do it all the way through. You just want to be able to know D minor all over the neck. So really, this Etude can be broken down and just jammed on. You just take 1 chord, D minor, A7, and just apply these licks. The next chord is E7, and I just do the same thing before, so I'm not going to go over that one. Except I do want that darker flavor because it's the 5 chord of A minor. Okay, and it does go to A minor. In the A minor, I do this shape. Okay. So of course you want that. I know you're working on minor swing, and so you can start to throw these licks. You might have seen my minor swing etudes and videos, to where I'm using these licks in my Gypsy Jazz Bootcamp exercises, and they start to sound really great, like, legit Gypsy Jazz phrases. Very colorful. So the only other thing I want to say is on the D major chord, the D7 chord, after A minor, I'm doing what I would do on a major chord. So just this, it's very happy, very pretty. So on the 5th, here's the shape, D, just like on the E shape we did earlier, E7, except I'm making this one major instead of this. It's kind of darker, so I'm pretending like it's the 5 chord of G, which it is going to go to G7. So there's that half step I said, be careful on the 3rd, and then on the root. So again, I'm pretending it's like a D major chord, just to kind of brighten it up. And then it goes to G minor to D7. And I want to say, just everybody plays the last 8 bars a little bit differently. Sometimes you'll hear F major to F minor, C to A7. Sometimes you'll hear F major, F sharp diminished, C to A7. Sometimes you'll hear F major, you took the part, F minor, E minor, A7. It's all good. For this purpose, I was actually simplifying F major to F minor, for the E minor to A7 or C to A7, I was just pretending it's just all A7. And I kind of made that the darker one, if you're wondering why I did that. And it's just because I wanted to think 2-bar phrases and just to simplify my thinking versus trying to change. And then after that, on the D minor, by the way, I kind of went ascending. I broke our little pattern here just to make it a little bit more interesting toward the end. Then I went to G major. Then finally back to C. And then of course that ending lick 1. Into something else, or to repeat the exercise. So that last part again, just to show you what I was doing on the D minor, G, C, okay. So that's a nice little 2-5-1, like if you want to work on that and throw that in with all the fancy embellishments. So thanks again for watching this video. We'll see you next time for Etude number 4, more of these fancier embellishments. Here we go.